There can be only one podcast, and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks, I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
So, yeah. Hey, Dark Side of the Ring time, folks. I like talking about
wrestling?
these. Yeah.
Right.
This came out this summer, May, June, and I didn't know about it. And I'd always said we were going to review the next season when it came out.
Right.
And it came out, and I just now binged it. Just as good. In fact, I'm glad. Who picks these ideas? I know Chris Jericho is like an executive director and he narrates it. Does he pick these?
I doubt he does. I mean, he may have a little bit of insight into it, but I'm sure they get some of their backers.
Feedback?
Yeah, and I think Conrad Thompson probably has something to do with it too on the side.
Oh, Conrad.
Yep.
We'll look at old Conrad. All right. There is, and this is a great one I want to talk about. Chris and Tammy. Chris Candido, right?
Correct. And Tammy Sitch.
Sonny.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling Sonny. Sonny came and went after I was a fan. I think she was a character very early and then left, and so I knew a little bit about her but didn't know anything else. Chris Candido?
Yes.
He
was in
flew
ECW.
so far under the radar.
When you got into it, he had already left the
Yeah,
WWE.
he'd already left the building and was on TNA.
No, he was in ECW.
Oh, he was in ECW. Oh, right. He was.
Yep.
So I had seen some because back then someone would buy the VHS and we'd go over to their house and watch ECW.
Right.
And it was okay, but I probably did see his matches. I didn't.
I love ECW.
I think ECW. Did we ever do that at your house?
Probably so.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of tape swapping of ECW.
Okay, because I remember I'd go over to someone's house.
Working ECW
who bought
was great.
Because you would tell me, or someone would tell me, hey, I bought the new ECW tape. Well, you want to watch it tonight? Yeah. And the only one that I remember the Dudleys.
Yes.
Back before they were WWE, and I thought they were fun because they had the third brother, right? No.
Yeah, well, they had quite a few brothers.
They had quite a few brothers. Anyway.
They had Big Dick.
Yes. And a few others. Sorry. They did have one. And
Big Dudley.
There you go. Yes, that's true. I was a Rod Van Dam fan, really, because I loved the High Flyers.
Sure.
Sabu, I remember, because I like the High Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then everyone else kind of looked the same. I know a lot of people love Sandman. I thought he was overrated, but, I mean, obviously he was good because the crowd wouldn't have gotten behind him so much. But so we watched him, and I thought it was like the third tier. But a lot of people thought that was just like the best. I mean, that's what inspired a lot of backyard wrestling. The hardcore match from WWF started because of ECW.
If you do a wrestling chronological view of the past 30 years, and you look at not live wrestling, and not even a 2-hour show, but if you could take these 2-hour and 3-hour shows and you edited them down. That's what ECW did so well. Their 1-hour show was action-packed. It showed you just enough of the good stuff. And their interviews with the Pulp Fiction music behind it was what made that show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So I bleed ECW still. I think it's great.
Oh, look out.
Yeah.
So we'll harp on Sonny. Sonny's story is very familiar to me because she was the person who went up with this guy, Chris.
Correct.
And they were, I did not know they were childhood sweethearts almost. High school sweethearts. And wrestling was his thing.
Correct.
And when she went to Jim Cornette said, well, here, we'll use your girlfriend too, And that's how she kind of became a character, blew up in the WWF, outshadowed her man.
Which happened to a few women in WWF.
But, yeah.
With Sable and Mero.
But so she started the little divas, maybe one of the first ones there before Sable came.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the attention was on her. Wrestling fans were like, ooh, a woman. And she enjoyed that, and she also enjoyed many a wrestler. So, and things kind of...
She had Royal Rumble is what you're saying.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Every 2 minutes.
Every 2 minutes. The music would play too. They'd throw the other person out of the ring and jump on in.
Right.
And then her story went to drugs, I'm very familiar with her story. And then where she got arrested a few years back. I did not know if she was still alive, and I could not remember. And then at the end, they said that she declined to be interviewed.
Yeah,
so
she's in prison.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah, she's probably never going to see the light of day.
okay.
now.
So she is never coming back from that arrest.
Correct.
Okay, 'cause after she got arrested, that was the last I'd heard from her.
Yeah, she's been in just she's
Gone.
yeah.
Yeah. So kind of tragic, but definitely a tragedy there.
Definitely, it's a very sad story. I don't think this is not something that we're going to sit here and go, oh, can't believe how all. It's sad.
Now, I'll be honest, I did not know about Chris Candido. I did not know his story. I did not know where it went. I did not know how he had kind of fallen off the train and then gotten back on and supposedly was on the straight and narrow again, being his old self again, feeling on top of the world again, kind of gaining a new life,
Right.
And a fresh start, only to die in the most unbelievable of events.
Yeah, break his
ankle.
And
Get on a plane.
Get on a plane and die of a blood clot.
But die of a blood clot. And the part that hit home about this episode, and I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
You cried, didn't you?
Probably.
Because I've watched the clip again. I brought Megan over to watch this. I said, you got to watch this. This is amazing. Because when they're talking about, his death, Lance Storm breaks down.
Yeah.
They don't go back to him because I guess he couldn't get back. His brother stops. And, of course, that's understandable. That's
sure.
his brother. And I think it started with his brother. Then it goes to Lance Storm. Then it goes to, I can't remember his name right now.
On it.
Cornette's on it, but I want to get to Cornette in a minute. But there's one other person who just asked to wait a minute, kind of put his head down.
Right.
Then came back up and finished, but it was choked up.
Yeah.
And then it goes to Cornette, who never gets emotional on any. I mean, not the sad type of emotion.
Right.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
But yet he gets teared up, choked up. I love it. Just in Jim Cornette saying, "Gee, I gotta have a minute here. I don't even know why I get all." And he's getting up. I mean, it really touched everyone. His death.
Yeah.
So obviously, this guy had made amends and come back from his demons, was his back on self, and everyone just hurts. Decades later, from him passing away, or over a decade later after he's passed away, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And yet, Jim Cornette, the man who's talked about all these tragic deaths and everything, and done that thing, and still one of the funniest guys that they get to interview. And you cannot tell me that they don't edit out laughs from whoever's behind the camera.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way you don't laugh when he's talking. But got choked up and had to walk. And I don't think that was a fake, or I don't think any of that's fake.
Well, Cornette, I mean, he's an emotional guy.
I've never seen him cry.
Good and bad.
Like that.
Cornette did break him into the business, and he did, because he talked about it on one of his many podcasts and shoot interviews, where he said, it didn't make sense for me to try to book Chris in Smoky Mountain because I couldn't pay him everything to get him down there, and it just wasn't. It was a loop. He said, but if I could do something with his girlfriend too, they both get a little bit of money, and I can get a little bit more out of all that. Then
and entice him to move down, because that way his girlfriend has something to do.
Yeah, it makes a little bit more sense. So I think that he always took a little bit of ownership of them, and maybe parental, maybe the wrong term.
I agree with that. Kind of like, hey, let me help you out. I'll help you both.
Chris loved the business like Cornette loves the business.
Yeah. They were kindred spirits.
Correct.
And obviously so, because it tore him up.
Yeah.
That here's a guy who had lost his path, lost his way, hooked on drugs, and then finally clears and looked like he was on the upswing, right on the cusp. Supposedly he's going to go on to great things, broke his ankle. Okay, well then you're off for a few months, but don't worry, you'll be back into it better and bigger than ever.
Right.
And they are right. At his time, it was the perfect time where the smaller guys, the high flyers, the stuff like that, they were getting the most attention now.
Right.
Gone were the days of the big man.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't go so far as to think that Chris had a second life as far as being a performer in the business, but I definitely think he could have been a producer, an agent, a road.
As a wrestler,
coach, that type of thing.
He would have left a mark, and it wouldn't. No, I don't think he would have been a legacy champion or whatnot like that.
Sure.
But definitely, the guy was getting his life together and was back on track, looking fit, looking trim, doing the job, going out there.
Turned
his life around. Everyone was cheering for him because obviously he was good friends with these people.
Yeah, he's a good. Yeah, he had a lot of friends in the business, and
But and that people are still upset talking about his death over what 15, 16 years ago. That tells you something about the
it's good
person.
that you're focusing on that, and not just the wild Tammy side of that, because
No,
that's just a whole different side of.
For me, that was the crux of that episode for me, and I love that.
Yeah,
because I believe the Tammy thing, we've seen that before. Almost everyone knows that. They do have to mention it because it is a tragedy.
Yes,
but
it's a tragedy in a total different way.
It's a tragedy in a totally different way, and I know what they were building up. Childhood sweethearts whose endings have been horrific. It's been a nightmare.
And how upside down that relationship really was, and how much of what she was doing was Chris really aware of, and how much did he just accept, and it almost hurt him in a male-dominated business at that time. Was no good if your girl is doing that and you're okay with it with the boys, because that's why a lot of guys, when they got in the business, they were always told, do not bring your girl around the business, because
you're asking for trouble.
Everybody's 14.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep,
that's true. Put yourself in situations that you don't want to be in.
Right.
Because what's he going to do? Slap HBK?
Right.
And then get drummed out of the next day?
Right. And that's exactly what happened to him at a certain point of. Yeah. If you look at it, I mean, that he was gone. She stayed, and then she completely unraveled the same way Sean did, except Vince was loyal to Sean in a way that he wasn't loyal to Tammy.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I agree. No, but fantastic episode to start with.
Yeah.
I did think, because like I said, I knew Sonny's story, and I thought, okay, they're going to focus more on her because she's the one that's been in the news. She's the one that's in. But no, his story was way more interesting and way more touching, and I really enjoyed. What a great. That's why I was saying, how did they pick who does this? That was a great story to start with, a great story to kick off with, and really good one. The next one is Shattered, the Magnum TA story. I never knew Magnum TA.
Right.
I mean, I know who the wrestler is and was, but I never watched him back in the day. Did you watch any of this?
Huge.
Huge. Okay.
It was introduction to me.
Yeah, okay. All right. So give me your
TBS.
Was Magnum TA all they said he would? In your mind, was he like, this is the coolest guy in the world? What did you think about him as a kid?
If you grew up in the South, yes.
So you physically watched these back in the day.
Yeah.
What memories do you have?
My memories of Magnum were the I Quit match with Tully.
Okay. That's one of his best.
Yeah, that's probably his most remembered thing.
Okay.
And I just remember Magnum had a real look to him. He was he looked like the kind of guy that was at the local bar that you didn't want to deal with, but girls loved.
Yeah, he had it all.
And
the look, the swagger.
He had a very intense way of doing promos, very believable, authentic. Like, it didn't sound like someone said, read this.
Okay, see, they didn't show many of his promos.
Yeah.
They showed, like, little clips. I don't know how much they can get away with showing.
Right.
But at the same time, though, so I'm just trying to get what he was like more as a wrestler.
No, I think he was kind of like a blue-collar kind of character. Like, this is a guy that
everyone could relate to and respect.
Right. This was a guy that, like, said, hey, my uncle's coming over for Thanksgiving, and he works pipeline.
Gotcha.
He's just that kind of dude. Regular guy, but had a lot of charisma.
Oh, yeah, you can tell.
Was good looking, and they booked him in such a strong way. It was like kind of how they booked Goldberg: quick matches, explosive offense, but his promos were killer. Good promo.
If you can talk on the mic and you get the creative push, you can be a champion.
Yeah, and Dusty loved him. I mean, that was a big takeaway. I mean,
that's Dusty's boy.
Yeah, Dusty.
That was the way, the truth, and the light to freedom.
Everything was to get Magnum ready.
Now, yes, because supposedly the deal was made, and I'm guessing you believe this too, because it made sense to me. But the NWA is like, you are the chosen one.
Yeah.
After this rivalry is done, the Dusty Flair rivalry is done. You are the man.
Yeah,
you will carry the
that's
belt.
Why we're going to get the belt off with Nikita. Get Nikita beat Magnum.
Right.
Because it builds Nikita, and it really doesn't hurt Magnum. it does more to elevate Nikita because he beats Magnum
3 times in a row, and then Magnum has these. I watch it. So I never knew any of this.
Yeah.
I never knew any of this. I
Right.
knew the name of the wrestler. I kind of knew who
Sure.
he was, but I didn't know his storyline. And so the best of 7, like a World Series match.
Correct.
It's perfect because this is the 80s. Russia is the ultimate villain, and
Rocky IV.
IV was out, and a best of 7 series made sense back then, and that he's just wiping the floor with Magnum the
Right.
first 3 matches.
Correct.
And when Magnum comes, it's barely a pin, or it's just an accidental. Like it's almost now, even though he's not the little guy, but he's the the guy
the
that won't
underdog.
quit. He's the underdog, and as the surprise wins kept coming, these little slip ups. If he hadn't have tripped on the rope or got
Right.
taken, then
Sure.
Magnum never would have got him.
Yeah.
And the fans just eating it a lot because they showed the 1, 2, 3 finishes there.
Yeah.
And you could see the crowd just, blow the roof off
Right.
with their sound. That was a charged
Right.
auditorium.
Correct.
Every time he won. And I said, wow, what a smart way to just you put anyone in that position that does stuff like that, and they propel all the way to the top. Easily. They become everyone's top guy. So that was creatively, Dusty Rhodes knew what was going on, knew what could happen. I liked that after the wreck they had to sneak. Flair wanted to sneak in there.
Right.
Kayfabe. They can't.
Yep.
The villain cannot go visit the
Sure.
guy,
Yeah.
but Ric Flair really wanted to go, and
Yeah.
so they found a
Well,
way
all
to
those
get.
guys. I mean,
All the
they
guys
were-
respected him.
Yeah, they were a brotherhood. I mean, those guys spent so much time together, and they were spending in cars, and
Yeah.
it was such an insulated business that.
Well, those
it
were your
was-
friends.
Right. Exactly.
Those were your closest friends. Y'all were on the road. Y'all were the road warriors. Y'all had so many adventures together.
Correct.
Y'all had so many laughs. You had so many stories.
Yeah.
You were traveling. And honestly, you were all in the prime of your life.
Correct.
Life could not be better. I can't remember who it was. If it was Tony Atlas said that we just thought we were always going to make that much money. We thought we were always going to be that rich and that popular and that like it never was going to end.
Right.
And I mean that's a feeling that you're on
because
a high.
you're in such a bubble. Like you're just on the road.
Everywhere you
travel,
go, people know you.
and
People recognize you. People want to buy
you
you
were
a
an
beer.
area. That was the thing about pro wrestling back then is you did not have so much entertainment like these people that wrestled on Saturday afternoons. If they came to your town, it was like you were meeting a TV star. That was no different than if.
Oh yeah, movie
anybody
star.
now that's how we're a celebrity-driven society, where it's like, oh my God, I can do that. Like, these are people that you could drive and spend $5 and be 5 feet from.
Yeah, and get it. Like you said, entertainment was not the internet.
Correct.
So it's almost like the circus coming to town.
It
In a
was.
good way. I'm saying,
Right.
like,
No.
oh, wrestling's tonight. It's happening.
was a-
We got to go.
Yeah, it was a variety of different things you could enjoy.
And you cheer for and you got they did the local TV stations to get you
Yeah,
riled up for
yeah.
the show. They used to do I'm sure they did radio too, and you tune into the radio, and you tune into your favorite show, and you talk about water cooler topics all week long. I can imagine what it would have been like at that time.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did that too, I guess, when they came.
I grew up on that when, I can remember in the early 80s, and, that was when wrestling was still kind of discussed in newspapers here.
Oh, wow.
And it was still just a major, everybody knew it was something to it, but it was believable enough.
Well, the newspapers are doing it. But like the newspapers also reported the circus in town. That was or
Correct.
the county
Right.
fairs coming through, or
It was a different, it was a different time, as Mark Maron would say.
It was a different time, and it's an exciting time. So whenever they came into town, I want to know what little Wesley thought.
Well, I mean, it was exciting to me. I mean, the first match that I ever went to, I don't have pictures of it anymore, and I definitely can't remember it because I remembered it from the limited amount of pictures I had. It was Michael Hayes and Junkyard Dog in a cage when Dog was blinded.
Oh, that match!
So, I mean, it was one of those that they went around the loop with, but that was my That was the first wrestling event I ever went to as a kid, so I was probably 3. Oh. But yeah, it was a huge deal around here for sure. And then the thing with Magnum is that's when cable kind of became a big thing around here in like 85, 86. But I can remember watching that with my uncle, and he was like giving me wrestling magazines and stuff, and he had a bunch of girls. He didn't have any little boys. So, it was something for me to
enjoy, to geek out with.
Yeah, and that's what my memories are from watching TBS with him and Magnum being there.
So, looking back on it now, do you agree with what they said in the documentary that Magnum was their way to beat Hulk Hogan? Would he have been a greater star? That's a bold claim to make.
I think that the idea was Magnum would be their version of that.
But was he they were talking like he was going to be a better version of Terry.
Well, I think that he would be a different version.
Okay. So
I don't think
they were still destined to fail.
I think that it was, they were fighting a bigger monster than they weren't fighting a wrestling war. They were fighting a production war.
And a survival war at that time, because Vince McMahon has already launched his attack
and Vince
nationwide.
Has already, Vince almost went out of business, and it's always been talked about. He's leveraged money against money to money to money. And Crockett tried doing that, and he just didn't have the financial resources for that. But here's what I was going to say to what you're about to tell me about Magnum that they don't talk about. I do think Magnum was going to be their Hulk Hogan originally, but I do think, and it can definitely be part of whatever comments, but I think that something that hurt Magnum that they did not see coming and derailed that was how popular the Rock and Roll Express got and how big of a star Ricky Morton got, because his feud with Flair was giant, and Dusty ultimately did a lot to derail them because it wasn't his vision for it to turn into that, and it just kind of happened.
Morphed into that because the fans wanted it.
Correct, and Dusty famously told them that nobody sells this place out unless I'm on the card, and they sold it out without him.
So that's
so I think Ricky Morton. You talk about who should have beat Flair. I definitely think Ricky Morton easily could have been a transitional champion instead of what they did. I'm not saying at the
so he would have been the better choice to be champion.
Well, I'm saying that he could have been when all of this stuff with this happened before Magnum. I'm just saying like
they already had a chance.
Right.
The idea that Magnum was the chosen one to lead the company after all these years.
True to a certain degree, but I think that they were not ready for how big the Rock and Roll Express were, and I definitely don't think that they were ready for how big of a draw Ricky Morton against Flair was. And I think that Dusty derailed that, and I think that hurt him in the long run because instead of turning Nikita, he could have had Ricky Morton as backup. That's just my take.
Okay. All right.
I guess a total different subject that
look at that
kind of links into this.
Look at that. So you say they already had greatness before. They would go on to greatness. So
I think if they would have let Ricky Morton be a transitional champion, they could have. It could have been a
different direction.
Right.
So but what the episode's trying to tell us, is that without T.A. Magnum, that was it. Crockett Enterprises would just die on the vine. Well, eventually.
I mean, it would, but I don't think that it was tied directly to Magnum. Okay. I think that Dusty's goal was to get Magnum to the championship. And let's say that that had happened 3 months later instead of Magnum being that terrible accident. I still don't think Magnum as champion going into 87 was going to change the direction of that company because Dusty didn't know where to go after that anyway. That's why it shows that he didn't know where to go when Magnum wasn't there.
Yeah, they didn't have anything.
So you could have put somebody there. If you thought Magnum should be champion, let Nikita win the title and let Nikita run with it. But they didn't. They let Nikita lose to Flair, which basically goes, this is the same finish we've done 3 years in a row now. Somebody loses to Flair in a weird finish. And I'm not saying Flair wasn't a great champion or anything. I'm just saying I think Dusty was running out of ideas. And it's easy to say, oh, well, if this wouldn't have happened to Magnum, I think Magnum would have been a scapegoat if he would have won the title, because they would have said, oh, well, they did all this for Magnum and he can't draw, when it's really they didn't know where they were going next. Kind of linked how we talked about our other subject
last
ago.
week.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this.
Well,
Going
it's
deep on it there.
Yeah.
Oh, so like you said, Magnum has a wreck, and now he's just done. And
Correct.
unfortunately, because I did not know how his story. This is another one that I did not know where they were going with it. I never knew much about. Like I said, I knew the wrestler, but didn't know what his tragedy was until later on. I thought when they interviewed him, he seems, he doesn't have regrets. He seems to accept what's given him, and that's easier said than done.
I can't imagine.
To go from, honestly, top of the world in your bubble, but you're at the pinnacle of success in your bubble, and then that bubble bursts, and then it is a hard crash down.
Yeah, it's not just like he lost his wealth. I mean, this guy went from being an Adonis. I think in one of his interviews, he said his arm was 22 inches around, and when he got out of the hospital, it was like, I don't know, 11.
Yeah.
I mean, he just...
Well, now he's a shell of...
He was a shell of what he was.
He was, even though he was walking, which they showed that, I like that, they thought was a great scene.
Yeah.
But you could tell he was never coming back.
Yeah, he'd lost so much use of
mobility
his body,
and everything, and he was
the fact that he didn't end his life over that and just turn to whatever vice he could find. He had a lot of work ethic.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they obviously the company loved him, brought him in as commentary and stuff like that, and at the same time he was a sport. But you're exactly right, because I can't imagine how painful. I mean, the wreck and losing your chance at champion. You're going to be the next champion.
Right.
You're going to be
right.
really soaring on cloud nine. Yeah. All that's gone. But to put insult to injury, you got to sit. I don't know if being an announcer is the best thing either, because you got to sit on the sidelines looking at what other people can do that you loved, that you may never do again.
Yeah, it's almost like...
That's like a special kind of torture.
Exactly, yeah.
And to have
it's like speaking at your ex's wedding.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like just sickening.
That happened 3 months after y'all broke up or something.
Yeah,
I mean, really hard. But the thing is, though, and you're right, because he didn't let depression get to him. He didn't fall. This could have ended tragically. I mean, after that, he gets hooked on drugs. He just or he just blows his brains out. We've seen it so many times with other wrestlers.
Yeah.
But he had the, I don't know, humility, the patience, the wherewithal. I don't know what it was to say, you know what? Had a good run. Sucks. Definitely sucks. But we're going to do what we can. I'm still going to do what I can for wrestling. I still love it. It's got to hurt inside every time you're watching wrestler and getting the crowd, because you love that crowd. You love that cheer. Those cheers used to be for you.
Yeah.
And some of them still are, but your time, now you know your time has faded, and it's only a matter of time. So, I mean, I can't, but you're exactly right. To come out still alive, non-messed up, and be kind of just at peace with things is it's almost, I wish they would have said something. Some other wrestler would have said that about him at the end, because that's what I got out of it. Just listening to him talk about, reminiscing about the old days. They weren't hurtful. They weren't painful. There's no bitterness in his voice. There's no, if I only would have done this, if I only would have done that. No, he laughed about it.
I think that's probably part of what Magnum was, an authentic promo. Mm-hmm. And I think he came off very authentic on that show.
And there was a bunch of authenticity of his. A lot of characters bring their own personality into it, but he more so.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that feel good old boy, laid back, whatever it is, kind of attitude. So I get that. But again, like I said, another good episode, that's why I was wondering, I said, who picks these?
Yeah.
Who's around here? But you say Conrad, the podcaster, maybe?
I mean, I'm just saying.
He delivers some ideas, wink, wink.
He's got his... I'm sure he's got his hand in a lot of different things.
Oh, does he?
Well, I mean, not those things.
Yeah, he's not the best looking guy.
Well, you got that much money.
Well, that's true too.
Everybody looks better with the lights off.
There you go, folks. Here's the quote. Hey guys, tell us, have you watched these episodes? If you haven't, and you know about the wrestlers, go ahead. Tell us what you thought of Chris Candido, what you thought about Sonny, what you thought about Magnum TA or whatnot.
And what you thought about possibly Ricky Morton being a better choice for this role.
And please, if you know who Ricky Morton was and about all the situation that Wes is talking about, please, for his sake, comment. And we'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.